So, AMB is the greatest archive anyone could ever ask for.
Of all the books I've read, of all the other online tutorials I've seen, this was the missing key.
Every video is like packed with this information that I would never be able to get anywhere else. So I would say this is the greatest resource for learning animation.
For me, AMB Animation Library is hands down the best animation learning resource that I've seen. I've tried all the tutorials, I've gotten all the books. I've never been able to really grow until I found AMB.
And it's incredible. I've only just begun it, but I definitely am getting more from that than I did from my 1.5 years of college.
I've noticed definitely that my animation has improved a lot, and it's more alive than ever. And what I also like about this animation training is that you also gain real confidence.
Real Animator Training Library is unequivocally the best resource for animation, 2D animation, traditional hand-drawn animation that I've seen.
So I wholeheartedly recommend the AMB Real Animator Training Library to anybody who wants actual knowledge and actual applicable concepts to create their own animation and to move forward in the field of animation and to set your work above those that are just kind of teaching themselves and not learning these tried and true classic concepts.
AMB is motivated by his students' successes and improvements. He's a great teacher, a great animator with over 20 years experience in the industry, so you can't really get much better than that. I strongly recommend him to anybody.
I'm thinking on how to put in words what I feel about it. I love that. It approached me from my dream of becoming an animator. Every cent I paid in there was worth it.
I like that the library is structured. I can go back and watch it anytime I want to, and he's just got so much knowledge. And I just highly recommend it to anyone who's out there looking to learn traditional 2D animation.
So thank you, MB, so much. And thank you so much for all you done for me.
So, are you gonna join the library?
Hello, authentic animators, AMB here with some authentic action steps for you to take towards realizing your dreams, desires, goals and ambitions upon this earth and to becoming a real animator in a fake world. Alright, so what's today's stream going to be about? Well, we're going to be talking about fluid animation. Fluid animation is a term that a lot of people use, when they like animation, but it's an ignorant term because most people don't really know why the animation looks good and they think it's more frame rate and it's fluid, it's flowing, and it's a term used in ignorance. And what authentic animation advice is all about is about giving you the reality behind it, showing you why things flow well, how to get those fluid movements when you do your animation. Why is it fluid? Basically helping you speak the language of real animators. So you're not just one of the, the AI simp fake tech head crowds who are looking for an easy way, or they'll do their type in their prompt and they'll get something and go, whoa, man, that's fluid, that's flowing, man. They don't really know what's making it work, how it can be better. So what a real animator understands is the language of animation. So what we're going to give you is we're going to give you some real animator rituals today in terms of how can you become a real animator. Well, you understand the language of animation. You understand that fluid, flowing animation is not really a term that a authentic animator, somebody who actually knows how to animate, would say that. So I know that when you receive positive comments, me included, online about your animation, and people go, oh, fluid animation, flowing animation, I take it with graciousness and gratitude, but it is one of those kind of things that makes me kind of think, oh, well, a lot of these people are aspiring to be animators, and they really should know better than to say fluid flowing animation. It's more about I'm going to give you a clue, the timing and the spacing. And timing and spacing goes back to two of the fundamental laws of animation, is what we call timing and slowing in and slowing out, but also arcing. Those three fundamental laws are what makes the animation appear fluid. You got a lot of anime on a very low frame rate, but it looks great. It looks absolutely great. And it's not because it's got a lot of frames. It's because it's following a definite arc and it's timed to perfection, meaning the drawings are spaced in a way to give it the right amount of weight and the right amount of movement to give it that feel of an absolute flow. So that's what we're going to do. We've got one person in the chat at the moment. So nice to have you, Kyle's Art Pie, saying, I thought you meant water animation. Oh, well, yeah, I mean, be water, my friend, you know. All right, let's change it up a bit. Let's move on to here. And, I'm having an issue with my mic at the moment, so let me just sort out the mic. We want it on this one. Okay, there should be. Now do let me know if you're experiencing sound issues, and I will have to look into that further, but hopefully the mic is good. Thank you so much, Giles Art Pie. All right, so I've got this scene here, which is a dance move, which is just keyframes with no breakdowns, keys and extremes with no breakdowns. But you can see there's a lot of flowing, fluid stuff going on, what people would call fluid animation, man, going on throughout this whole. There's, we've got almost 2 minutes of animation done here, and many of you have seen the progression of this, but I'm just going to take you through it as I'm going through this. So we start here. So everything that makes this work appear to be fluid is certainly not the frame count. There are a lot of frames in some scenes, but those frames are not necessarily. That's because it's a longer scene. But the way we get from one pose to another isn't just simply a matter of using lots of frames and in-betweens to make it fluid, all right? We are using something called pose-to-pose animation, which is one of the laws. Most of this animation is shot on 2s anyway, which is each frame will be double exposed. There's a few 1s in there as well. So this scene in particular is a camera angle, a camera move, shifting camera angle, and it feels very, very fluid. But there's, as I said, I'm going to reveal to you the choices that a real animator makes, an authentic animator makes to create this effect of fluidity. And you'll find that you don't have to worry about doing as many drawings as you think you have to do, which is how I'm kind of speeding through this almost 2 minutes of animation that I've got here. So this is what we're going to talk about. We are going to I'm going to do rough drawings to get between here and here and here and here and here and here and here. And I'm going to make those choice drawings as my breakdowns, right? And we're going to need more in-betweens to make it fluid or more fluent. But the point is this is how we determine whether it's going to be fluid or not, right? So it's very important for you to understand the difference between a real and a fake animator, right? Real animator, fake animator, right? And it's simply understanding the why. That's what it is. Why? Because if you understand the why, you then know the how. This person just simply hasn't got a clue. So they'll just say, oh, I want it fluid, right? So in understanding the why it's fluid and how it's fluid, you have to understand we're going to look at arcs, we're going to look at timing, and we're going to look at slowing in and slowing out. These are the three fundamental laws, and obviously we're gonna go between different laws, which is pose to pose here, right? Which is the type of animation that we are using. So already the real animator understands speaking the language of animation, right? Which is what the tech head simps using AI, the artificial animators, simply cannot speak that language. They're typing in their prompts, but how on earth are their prompts going to be any good when they don't understand the language of animation, right? So, and this isn't something that is simply a language so you understand the language and then you can type it into the prompt. Because I'm going to demonstrate to you through visual reference of why. Because there are so many competent animators who could be considered real animators in the business that understand the basics of the 12 laws of animation, but they haven't really had much practice in implementing them, and they make very poor to average choices, particularly about their arcs, particularly about their timing and slowing in and slowing out. Now let me show you one of those choices that they make right now. So if we look at this scene beforehand, we can see that the camera pans up, she does a little anticipation, and she makes a point like that. And then we pull out, we cut to the next shot, and we're in the point, right? And then from that point, using the law of pose to pose animation, we're going to come down, right? We're going to come down, and then we'll move into this kind of shuffle move and come back here, right? So all of the follow through, overlap on the hair, and everything has kind of been worked out. All of the main things have kind of been worked out. And then I would say, all right, I'm going to give that to a junior animator or an assistant animator to break it down. And that's where the problem starts, because most non-juniors and most non-assistants that are working in the industry today do not even have the level of understanding what the old junior... If you think about it, if I said a name like Don Bluth, if I said a name like Glenn Keane, most of you or some of you who are into hand-drawn animation will definitely know who they are. They were junior animators for the 9 Old Men. The 9 Old Men were kind of training these guys up. And so most animators today are just put into the position of animator, particularly the software people who literally are glorified AI. You know, they're glorified AI. You know, basically they do not have the animation intellect to be able to select the right arcs, the right points of slowing in and slowing out. They're too quick to jump into breakdown before really looking at the arc to determine if two extremes need another key to make their arc more interesting. So that's what we're going to do here. I'm going to give you an example of how I'm going to get from hair to hair, right? So she jumps up and we come out from hair to hair. Now, a fake or inauthentic animator, one who is ready primed to jump into AI simply because they just want to save a career rather than practice an art form, would be the one who would say, all right, I've got to get from hair to hair. I'm going to plonk it halfway in the middle along a linear arc like this, which is pretty much what the computer would do in AI anyway, right? So there's your AI choice, right? And then they'll in between that with maybe 2 or 3 in-betweens, and it will look, here's that word again, God, I almost hate it, fluid, man. Fluid work, man. Of course, to the uninitiated, I don't mind that word being used. But if you aspire to be a real animator, please do not use that term, because it is the probably the term the fake AI people like to use, who like to fancy themselves as animators, right? You guys don't fancy yourself as animators. You are animators. You're real animators, right? So they're going to go and then go put the arm here, and they're going to go, yeah, follow an arc, man. I'm going to be clever, man. I'm going to have the arm arc like that. I'm using arcs, man. Complete schoolboy stuff, right? So they'll go down like that, and they'll add another in between to slow out. So they'll add another in between here, right? Let's do it. So they'll add one here thinking, yeah, man, I'm going to slow out and come down fast, and it's going to give it some weight, man. Fluid work, man. Flowing stuff. Yeah, Dad. Right? So basically, it's going to be something like this, right? And then they'll think, wow, yeah, that comes out of that pose. Useless. Useless. We don't want that. That is schoolboy, beginner grade, the kind of stuff that I see on Twitter. Much as though I do not rate Pixar as an animation studio, much as though I do not rate them, they actually have some understanding and skill of how to animate. So when I see this kind of CG AI stuff on Twitter and them saying, now we can do Pixar animation, I'm like, no, you can't. Your stuff is following the worst kind of arcs. Maybe the average Joe in the street watching it will just look at the polished turd and it looks like Pixar visually and think that's Pixar. But that is not animation as far as I'm concerned. So the real animators out there, aka us, will be immediately able to tell because we speak the language of animation. So let's do something a little bit different. Let's do what maybe a intermediate kind of guy who everybody else thinks, oh, he knows his stuff, man, but he doesn't really, right? Let's examine what that guy who's read a little bit would do, right? He'd say, you know what? I'm gonna come out on thirds, man. Yeah, I've learned about spacing and timing, and I'm gonna come out on thirds. So I'm gonna put a third there. Yeah, I'm gonna put the body 1/3 of the way, like that. Of course, this is the kind of stuff I teach in my basics archive. This is not what you need to be doing at advanced finished level stuff. But anyway, little Joe Blogs here. Everybody else thinks he's got so much great timing and charisma to his work because he just understands just a little bit about. And you know what? I'm going to put another timing chart and I'm going to call it a favor. And everybody's going to be so impressed. So that hand's going to favor that. Yeah. And it's going to arc like that. And the body's going to arc like that. Right? So this is what little Joey Blogs will be doing. And to his credit, it'll be better than the first simp. Right? Be better than the first simp. Because at least he can, like a child that's just learned to read and write, Jack and Jill, right? And they're just doing their nursery rhymes, and they've just learned their alphabet, and they're somewhat able to use the rules of language to put together a better sentence than the ignoramus, right? The goo goo gaga of the AI simp, right? So basically, we have something like this. No, not bad. There's a bit of weight to that. Not bad. But what this guy completely missed out was his arc choice was too boring, right? He still followed that linear arc, and his favor was right. His third might have been right, but he just played it too boring, too normal. Again, a computer could quite easily think like that, right? Easily to replace. Right? Now, sometimes being boring, being using the direct arc is the right thing to do. But this isn't one of those times. And that's when being able to speak the language is very important. Being able to speak the language of animation. So, here's what I would do. All right? And here's what an authentic animator would do. Now, we need to understand that this is a performance, first and foremost. So we need to watch the scene before and maybe the scene before that and get into the personality of the character. Okay, she's doing this move. She's made a crazy expression. She's jumped up. She's jumped up, right? We cut out. We want to savor that jump just a little bit, right? I don't want to change the Michael Jackson dance that she's doing. It's, you know, he doesn't really jump high, but I want to linger on this pose a little bit more. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to arc the head like this, and I'm going to put a favor on the head. I'm going to keep the head favored, arced up like this, and I'm going to hold that pose. The whole, like standing on the tiptoes, is going to be held. And we're going to just move slightly out of that. So we're literally favoring the whole thing and arcing it this way, right? Now I want to think about what the leg is going to do. So as we're moving this way, this leg is going to go like this. Because we can't go straight because the whole body's moving this way. And I want to keep that leg kind of extended out. So I'm going to kind of favor that, right? So I'm going to want the foot to be around there like that. That's what I'm wanting. And I'm probably going to want the head to look up a little bit more. So I'm gonna indicate that I want my head to look up, right? Not gonna be doing too much there because I'm roughing that out. Now, I'm gonna do the same thing with the arm. I'm gonna have the arm and the hand extend just a little bit up before going down. So there's a little bit of stretch in that arm. Extending just a little bit up. Now this one, I may want to do that, right? I may want to have this arm, so this arm is opening out. So the hand is going to come out here before going down. So I want that hand to shoot out a little bit more like that. And now already we're going to feel the tug. We're going to really feel that as that comes down. And that's going to give it more life. And then we have to understand that between hair and hair, I may have just one in between. One in between. Now, I'm not going to put that in just yet, because that'll make it too easy for you to see. You need to see on a macro level. As an authentic animator, you need to understand that she's going to go from hair into hair, right? So we have to use the law of slowing in and slowing out. Again, so I've chose to favor hair, not even put it on a third, almost like a little balancing act, and I've completely made the arc coming this way. So, again, if I want to come down into this, the simp, you know, the tech head, the technician who is rubbing his hands at AI that literally doesn't understand or enjoy the process of animation like we do. Because, of course, real artists enjoy the process. You enjoy, when you're good at something, When you got muscles, you like flexing them, right? If you got nothing to show, then you don't enjoy the process. Simple kind of thing of somebody who doesn't understand or just wants to get through it quickly because they don't really enjoy the process. So again, the easy one will be, I'll put everything halfway in the middle like that, right? And we'll have the leg coming halfway down, and we'll have the head coming halfway down, the body and the arm coming halfway down. Of course, this will work. This will work, but it'll completely kill the timing. And there'll be lots of frames, but it won't necessarily see, it feels too slow now, right? From something that was too fast suddenly feels too slow in that rear leg. Not good enough, right? So what the intermediate guy might do, the intermediate guy, he might say, okay, I'm going to put everything two-thirds of the way away, right? And that wouldn't be too bad. That would be almost right by my eye, right? That would be almost right by my eye, right? So he'll put this 2/3 of the way, and he'll put this 2/3 of the way, and he'll put the head 2/3 of the way, right? So then let's have a look at how the flow of that works. Better, right? It feels snappier. But for me, there needs to be more favoring going on. Because we're coming out with a favor, and I want to get into this position quick with a favor. So I'm going to look at the move as a whole. So this position here, I'm going to want it down, and I'm going to want to possibly have this knee almost already in position, right? So that's more than 2/3. That's almost a favor close to that. So there's going to be a quick movement. Again, maybe I'll have one in between on ones. Again, switching between ones and twos, which is again what an authentic animator will do. Now I have to think about the placement of this leg. It can't just simply float down. I have to really think about the rotating of the knee, moving like this, and almost coming down on tiptoes, right? Little bit of body mechanics going on here, right? So this is also a favor, right? We're not 1/3, we're not 2/3. Arguably with the leg, the thigh, it's like thirds, but we're thinking more of a favor to get the weight and the feel of the mechanic of that stiletto coming down like that. Boom, boom. And that's what already is going to give the sense of weight. Now here we'll do what Mr. Intermediate did. I will say, okay, let's have that on a thirds. But what I want to do is I'm going to make sure that I want to delay the turn in the body. So here I didn't really draw much in the middle because I want to keep things constant. But here I want to kind of delay the turn in the body. So I want to have this part of the body on a facing us front, right, with 1/3 of the way. So I'm going to put a line there like that to kind of remind me when I start to draw the character in that that's what I want. And the head, I'm going to watch the arc of the head. The arc of the head, I'm going to put 2/3 of the way away. But I'm going to already have it. I'm going to put the nose there, that's the angle that I want. A more front-on angle. Not too different from the pose we're getting into. Now I have to think about the hand. So the hand I want to maybe arc like this. I don't want it just shooting down like that. I want to feel, because the body is turned this way, I want to feel the dynamics of that hand. So I'm going to turn it out here and I'm going to extend it. So it's coming down, almost not like it's arcing, not really straight, but I want you to visualize that the hand arc is going to be something like this, like an S-curve. So that's going to make us feel as if something's flowing, right? We're going to start to open those fingers and see the thumb a little bit there. That's going to give us that flowing, fluid feel. We'll soften that a bit. This hand, I'm going to put on a half, right? Because halfway will give us enough space to kind of juggle and balance the illusion. So we've got thirds, we've got halves, we've got favors, all going on in this to kind of balance that pose. Because I want to get into that pose quick. I might not even want to in between here and here and here. That might just be the one, and I might even use ones for it, meaning just one frame. So now you can see the difference. We can feel the thrust of the finger and the land with a lot more impact. It's not too slow, it's not too jerky and fast and awkward, and there still needs to be one more frame between here and here, and possibly one frame between here and here, but I doubt it, right? Because I've played around with the squash and stretch. You see this leg is squashing and stretch. It's stretched here, right? And then it comes down, then it goes into this knee bend, sudden knee bend the other way. So now we're going to talk about getting from here to here, right? And getting from there to there is something that is very basic. Very, very basic. So again, to remind you what the AI simp or the fake animator would do, as opposed to the authentic animator, is he would put everything in the middle, right? You put everything in the middle, and that'll give you fluid animation, no doubt, right? Put everything in the middle will give you fluid animation. But then this is what happens to a lot of people that are learning real animation, but they're too quick to want to get into drawing character, and they forget the fundamental basic laws, right? So again, this is going to make it, the whole movement, which is very jerky in the knees when you watch the Michael Jackson dance, going to make it all very kind of plain and boring, going through the motions. Not really what we want. We want to go back to the fundamental basics of what we learn in the Basics Archive of Real Animator Training. And I'm going to have to deviate for a minute here. Now, if you're not looking at the screen, look at the screen now if you really want to learn. Because I'm not going to be drawing a character. I'm going to be sharing with you some secret basics that are from the Basic Archive of the Real Animator Training Library, the world's best learning resource in the craft of hand-drawn animation, bar none. So we have a pendulum. We have a pendulum here, right? And that same pendulum swing is going to be here, right? Let's just put another frame here, just so. So we're going to go from here to here. Let's put another frame here so we don't see any. That's it. So going from here to here, right? Let's make the swing a little bit more further out. Help you visualize this, right? Now, between these two, there has to be a middle point, right? Or does there? Or does there? So, the way we teach it in the Basics Archive of the Training Library following the arc here is we simply go between here and here like this. And then we learn very simple things like, okay, you can either go, let's draw it in blue. You can either go halfway, and that'll give it a very linear, boring timing, right? Or you'll do what's called slowing out. You'll go 1/3 of the way here, slowing out, and then 1/3 of the way in, right? Like that. And that'll give you a bit more weight. So let's have a look at both ways very quickly, right? So this is not going to take long. So we're going to put in our little one going boring halfway and see what effect that makes. We're going to put in our little boring one going halfway here, right? And if we look at it, it gives us a kind of boring, simple thing. Now what we learn, to be fair, what we learn is we then learn that between here and here we can put other frames and we can slow it down, right? We can slow it down by putting a half one between here, and if we so desire, we can slow it down by putting a half one, halving it again. But I'm only just going to do it once because I want to keep this stream moving. I think you kind of get the point, right? So, when we look at it now, there's a bit of a faster swing. And it certainly is fluid. You know, there's that word again. Fluid, flowing animation, man. That's not really the language of an animator because it's fluid, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's good. It doesn't necessarily mean it's good. So I'm going to delete that. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to delete that. So what can we do instead? Right. Now that's kind of what you really learn, you know, for maybe like, I've just gone over that in less than 5 minutes. And I have a whole, probably 2 hours worth of lectures in the training library explaining that in detail for you. That's important to know, right? But that's still the very simple basic stuff. You want to really understand that before you jump ahead, which is what I'm going to tell you now, because I don't teach this in the training library, because we move on to other things where you do it with other things. So, but using the same principle, building off the concept. So between here and here, what can I do? I can then say, okay, well, if this is kind of like halfway, right? I may just want to put my thing on a third here like that, right? And I'll do the other one here. And I may just want to put my other one on 2/3 of the way like that. And of course, then we won't be needing that. So this is going to create a very different type of effect. This is going to create a kind of jump. Can you see? This is going to create a kind of jump, which is probably not really a very naturalistic pendulum swing. But that's because it's not a reactionary move. It's more of an action, right? It feels like there's some force moving that pendulum to make it go this way and that way. So we're relying on that jump to create that movement. So we can push it even further by, and this is something that Eric Goldberg told my mentor, Richard Baisley. Both were supervising animators at Disney. that the Warner's guys would leave that all on, they do that on twos. But when Eric Goldberg was directing Back in Action, he wanted a more flowing kind of animation because it had to mix with live action. And that timing didn't quite work. So he said, you know what? We're going to use that mentality, and we're going to put in a half on ones. So this frame will be 2 frames. This frame will be on twos. This frame will be just 1, meaning you'll only shoot it once, not twice. Or your duration in your timeline will just be 1, not 2. This will be 2, and this will be 2. And then you can push it even more by then saying, okay, I want to put even more weight. So let's first have a look at it like this. I'm jumping the gun a bit, right? So now we've got some fluidity in there, right? Which is using you, but it doesn't feel as typical as the first basic example, which is always used. Then you push that even more with slow-ins and slow-outs. So we'll put a half there, but I will not put any in between hair and hair, right? And I will not put any in between hair and hair. I will put it between hair and hair. And you could push it further if we were doing a proper pendulum. This isn't good enough, but it's leading on to my mentality. I need you to understand my mentality for the scene that I'm animating, right? So this is very quick information, but authentic nonetheless. So here we've got the force of the pendulum where the midpoint is very kind of irrelevant. We've got a little bit of a strobe there, so we need to think about why that's happening. It's probably because I'm going back and forth in the software rather than hitting play and timing it out. So, but that mentality is exactly the mentality that I'm going to approach this. So I'm going to delete that. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to delete that. Delete that. Delete that. Delete that. I'm going to delete that. So as we watch her legs, when I'm looking at this animation, I want that kind of timing. And if we look at this scene here, you'll see I put in-betweens there, but you look at the big jump. You see the big jump going there, the jump going back. But there's a camera moving here, which means I've had to be a little bit kind of different with that because the focus is on this. But now here, I'm going to focus on those knobbly knees. So to get that knobbly knee effect, I need to factor in that in here. So my breaking down of this will be focusing entirely on the legs. So I'll be like between here and here. Okay. So I'm going to go for the out point, which I'm going to put 2/3 of the way away. But then I have to think about the leg position, right? Which is going to be something like this. And then we got the hips here. I need to think about the hip line. The weight will be perfectly counterbalanced here. And we will have this moving down here like this. So 2/3 of the way. 2/3 of the way. What about the body? Well, I'm thinking the body is going to probably have to be 2/3 of the way as well. Otherwise, there's going to be something kind of jittery going on there like that. But that's probably how we want it. I'm into this. So I've already kind of come down into that, and I want to come out quickly of that. So 2/3 of the way, and the in-between will be a half on ones, like I showed you with the pendulum. And this will be 2/3 because I'm planning to use a half on ones. If I put any other body part on a different thing other than 2/3, I'm gonna have some awkward slow movement somewhere, right? So the half on ones is again, so I'm gonna probably splay my fingers here, but keep it 2/3 of the way, and I'm gonna kind of just keep the hand position neutral on that one. So this is 2/3 of the way. I will go down into this foot position already, and I will come out of this foot position. So we'll hide the heel and reveal the heel to give it that stamp down effect. Now the face is pretty much looking down. Now one thing I didn't mention here, which I just realized as I was coming here, is some of these keys need to be changed. So here the hairstyle is going to be, these two bits of the hairstyle is going to be coming up. Now here I want to drag that hair. I want to see that hair drag like that. Right? And now if I look at this frame, if there's no in-between or even one in-between, that's too much. So I'm going to have to revise this key position. Do not be afraid of revision of your key poses, especially when you're doing follow through and overlap of certain things. You cannot guess, right? I've kind of I had to redo the hair in the back of her head, the big massive hair, a number of times because my initial key poses were just guessing, and you can't. The hair is follow through, overlap, and drag. It's got to react properly. So here, that's going to add a lot to the scene. And of course, the AI will not really exaggerate the hair enough. It'll probably be too, if you're using AI, it'll probably be too naturalistic or not good enough, probably based on cutout or something. So again, that's where the authentic animator has the power and the freedom to push it as far as they like. So let's have a little look at how these breakdowns are working. Already we feel the knee movement now. Even without doing the in-betweens of the other, we feel the lead up to it, as if we're really leading up to it. So here, yeah. Right. So, we now have to do it the other way. And my breakdown for the other one could well be to do the same thing. But there's got to be kind of there's two favor, just like I did with the pendulum, right? With this one, I didn't have to because we've spent enough time in this pose, right? Getting into this pose. We've got the favor here. But with this one, it's all about the movement. And there's something interesting going on with the head hair, right? Which has to be on a different timing. Okay? So, if we want to go from hair to hair, we're going to have to think about staying around this pose. So almost like almost a favor. Coming out of it is almost a favor. I'm not even doing it on a third. Coming out of it is almost a favor. With the body, I'm doing it on 1/3 of the way because I want a more linear movement on the body. I want the body to be a little bit more linear, right? I want the body to be a little bit more linear. So just a reminder, what I'm doing here is I'm helping you speak the language of animation. because ultimately what makes the real animator superior to the fake animator, the authentic animator, isn't just your ability to do it. You are by default more sophisticated than the tech head. The tech head doesn't know what he's doing. He thinks the technology he's using is the advanced thing that's making him produce great work. He's an imbecile. He's completely dependent, doesn't know a thing. The real animator, the authentic animator, is the sophisticated animator. You can speak the language of animation. That's like your superpower. You can speak the language. You know how and you know why. So therefore, when you see something wrong, you can fix it, even if you want to dabble with the artificial fake stuff, which I'm probably guessing most of you won't, because you're authentic, but some of you may want to, and good luck to you, and you can possibly apply the authentic mindset to it if you so desire. At least something good will come out of it, rather than the slop that people are vomiting out in this day and age. But I do remind you that part of the reason what makes us authentic is we're artists, and artists enjoy the process of creation. The people who built AI are artists. They were creating AI. They enjoyed that process. The people who use AI are not artists. They're simply children playing with a toy. They don't know what they're doing. They don't really understand. And a lot of people who are animating in software had that mentality. So now I've got to really think about these hands. I think these hands are going to be kept. There's only going to be kind of 2 frames in between, so that the choice of the thirds being on thirds has to stay. I'm going to come and look at the comments in a minute. So this head is going to rise up and it's going to come out. So it's all on thirds. Everything else is on thirds, but the legs are on favors. And that's what's going to help keep this timing good. See, so now we've got, even without, that doesn't need any in-betweens, and the hands are very in place, and we can see the legs doing their thing. All on 2s. Perfect. Now, of course, when I go off stream to draw and animate this, I won't be using any of these roughs, because it'll slow me down, because I kind of just clean up. I kind of just do each in between. I just know I'm at that level. So this live stream is purely for your benefit. So now back here, we're going to do the same thing, and then we're going to come out of it. And then we're basically, the stream is going to be, you're going to watch me give you all of the main breakdown points that'll make this fluid and flow. Let's see what's going on in the chat. We have got the noob next door. You're certainly not a noob watching this stream, my friend. You've already learned more than most people who are tinkering with AI or who have spent their life learning the instruction manual of Toon Boom and TV Paint. Dylan Royer, how are you? Cameron, Alan Davidson Black, good to see you. Migs Animation, the only AI I will tolerate is the AI that allows my digital blush to look like an actual brush. Well, I'm sure you tolerate the AI fonts going out there and whatever, and however, but I understand what you mean. I understand what you mean. You want to be an authentic animator. You don't care too much about being fake at other things, and hey, we're all like that. We love hand-drawn animation and we want to keep that real. But I'm not for once going to be under the delusion that, you know, if I use a font in Photoshop, I don't know. I haven't learned fonts. I haven't learned those things. So we're passionate about hand-drawn animation, and we're passionate about being artists in that right. Pose to pose, following the art, bread and butter. Absolutely, Jimbo, my friend. Good to see you on the stream. Phil Will, keeping it real is my best way. Absolutely. That's exactly what I'm going to be doing here. Real animator rituals, real animator affirmations for you to say, which will make you feel more sophisticated than the fakers out there and actually drive you into where the action is. You could say, I'm a real animator because I speak the language of animation. Repeat that to yourselves every morning while you brush your teeth, and soon you will definitely find yourself fluid in the language of animation. Why? Because you're programming your nervous system into the concept of you are a real animator because you speak the language of animation, and then you will find yourself involuntarily looking into the 12 laws of animation and improving yourself in that area. That's the way it works. For Lauren Presley, hello, I've been watching your channel a while now and your lessons and demonstrations are motivating. Want to thank you for instruction as well as the positive energy to this rookie animator. That is my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. It absolutely is positive energy. I really want to, I love and care about my community, the people who love to practice hand-drawn animation. And it's my absolute mission to channel the positive energy to the people that matter, aka the people who are passionate about hand-drawn animation. Some people watch what I do and they say, oh, you're down talking this, you're down talking that. Well, my content, frankly, isn't for them. It's for people like you. It's to empower people like you to continue doing what you're doing, to continue practicing the craft of hand-drawn animation, becoming better at it, realizing your dreams, desires, goals, and ambitions, so that this art form doesn't only just survive, it thrives and flourishes in a niche of elite artists that practice it to its highest level and are interested in doing that while the rest of the world tinker with their digital toys of AI and whatnot. So it's my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. Go to Sean Art, how are you? Another authentic animator has entered the chat. Welcome in, guys. I'm only a part-timer in the streams because of time zones, but it's always a... No, you are no way a part-timer, Jimbo. Jimbo is a staunch supporter of AMB animation. And what I like about Jimbo is he's as authentic as it gets. He'll sometimes message me. He watches some live streams and he says, I didn't like the way your advertisement was at the bottom of the stream. And I said, you know what, Jimbo? I didn't like it either. If you continue watching the rest of the streams, you're gonna see that I changed it. I'm thinking that was you, Jimbo. I could be wrong, but it sounded like you. And you know what? We agree, because that's the authenticity. Super Machine Master, good to have you on the chat. Anna Burks, hello Mr. AMB, hello everyone. I happened to catch a sight of this live stream on one of the thumbnails. It is an honor to be here. It's an honor to have you on my streams, Anna Burks. I don't believe I've spoken to you before, so it is an absolute honor. I'm absolutely loving this opportunity to double down on my pushing of real animation and authentic animation in this increasingly fake environment that's trying to put fear into the hearts and minds of people practicing hand-drawn animation or any kind of other alternative means of animation. I don't want people to feel dejected. I don't want people to feel unloved. I'm here for you guys. I'm here to help share these things, help share my skills with you so that you can continue to practice your passion and feel good about what you're doing and feel confident about what you're doing. You are very relevant, all of you in this world. You are very human and you are doing something that is very human. And I am here to help you guys continue to do that. For what is authentic animation? What is the practice of authentic animation? It is simply you exercising and expressing your humanity. upon your work. Charlene Giles is here. Amazing to have her, another authentic animator. And that's it. We have gone through the entire chat. Let us now continue with learning the language of animation. That's what I'm now going to call it. The Real Animator Ritual, which is going to be another way if people find the saying, I understand the 12 laws of animation. If you feel that's too technical for you to just keep saying 12 laws and it puts you up, just say, I speak the language of animation. And when you understand these 12 laws, and we're going through the 3 fundamental base laws at the moment, timing, arcing, slowing in and slowing out with a little bit of pose to pose. So 4 laws, that's already almost 4, 8, that's 4, 8, 12, that's 1/3 of the way. You speak 1/3 of that language fluently. So right, we're going to go between hair and hair. I'm going to do the same thing. So to those of you, now let's see how much of this is sunk in. Because just like what happens when you watch a motivating video and then you continue doom scrolling, you forget what you've taken in. So I kind of stepped away from what I was doing and interacted with you all, and it was lovely. But let's see how many of you have taken in what I was saying. So how would you, maybe Charlene, maybe you will know this, but this is specific to the people who were here earlier, because it's not fair on you, you've joined the stream late, but maybe you already know because you've been through the training library. Now if I'm going to do the knees here, right, what am I going to do? Type it in the chat. What am I going to do? Where am I going to put my frames? What am I going to be using? Am I going to be using a half? Am I going to be using a third? Am I going to be using favors? What am I going to be doing to get from hair to hair, right? And it's okay if you forgot, because what I'm doing is I'm kind of showing you guys how to train your nervous system. It's only a nervous system thing. If you forget, don't be hard on yourselves. Your nervous system just isn't wired. But some of you may have been paying attention and you haven't forgotten. What am I going to do to get from hair to hair? Okay. Migs, I'm thoroughly disappointed. You can't get it wrong. You can't get it wrong, but I'm not going to put a half, Migs. No, I'm not going to put a half. That is the last thing I would do. But you can't get it wrong. It's very good you said that. You know why you said that, Migs? Because that's your habitual conditioning. Your nervous system is wired to think halves. Culture Show and Art, thirds is a good one, but that's probably not what I'm going to do. I'm going to use thirds for the body, Culture Sean, but not for the legs. Rusty Rebels, thirds. The frame before would dictate the order of the next frame. I think you said favorites. You know what, Lauren Presley? It's not favorites, it's favors. All right? And you are spot on. Everybody give a round of applause to Lauren for getting that. There is no wrong answer. You're all right, because your nervous system is simply habitually conditioned. So how are you right if you answered it wrong? Because you learned something. And you can already now say, you know what? The favor creates that kind of jerky feeling that I want in those knees to get that. So the body's going to be on thirds and the leg's going to be on favors. So let's do it again. Now, Lauren called it favorites. And I like that. But that's my favorite for doing this. But so again, thirds on a timing chart is like this, because we're splitting it in 3. Halves, my friend Miggs's method, is on a timing chart like this, because we're splitting it in half. And favors is on a timing chart like this, because we're going so close that we're favoring one key over the other, right? The same here. And now I explained to you that I'm going to basically have the legs on a favor chart the body on a thirds chart. And what that leaves me is, if I film it and the timing is still a little bit needing that extra frame, if I'm working on twos, I can throw in a half hair on ones, meaning all of the other frames are shot for 2 or duration of 2, and I have a linear movement on the body, and I have still got a fast jump on the knees, and it'll soften it, right? Now I'm hoping, being lazy and wanting to rush through this animation, that I won't need that. You know, if I wanted it to look perfect, then I would put it in there. But this is an animation that I'm quite happy with it just being a mediocre level AMB, because for me, even at my mediocre level, it's satisfactory. It's better than all the fake crap out there, right? So that's also just not a boast. That's a little bit of a tip to you, that don't get too caught up with trying to be perfectionists in your journey. Just produce, learn, and move forward. When you move on to the next one, you're getting better, you're getting better. Black Belt Jones! Good to see you, my friend. Okay, let us go in and put our thirds here. So we're gonna, not the thirds, our favors, excuse me. So is it Lauren? Getting used to the new name. Lauren Presley. So here, you're absolutely right. We see how these, if we go in, so you can see the previous frame, how our knobbly knees are close to that one. And I'm gonna kind of like keep the heel there. The feet are another little kind of subtle worry that I'm gonna have to focus on off stream, to be very honest with you, with those high heels cheating in and out. Now the body, as I mentioned, is gonna be 1/3 of the way, right? So I can move this body 1/3 of the way. I can just be kind of loose with the hands. So notice how I'm focusing on the silhouette. So for all of you guys who are learning your own animation, and you know, in spite of my telling you not to do characters and to do bouncing balls and stick figures and flour sacks, if you want to do characters, don't draw in the whole character when you're practicing this particular timing stuff, because you're wasting your time trying to keep volume and draw the character if your arc choices are bad, if you're or weak. I prefer to use the word weak because it hits home a bit more. It hits home a bit more. If you have weak arc choices and you have poor, not bad, okay, poor, weak arc choices and poor timing, spacing, slowing in and slowing out choices, then it's wasting time trying to be solid. Again, that's what the fake rush job, inauthentic, and this is why where we are with AI. There's an obsession with fluidity and thinking things are solid means good, right? But fluid, flowing animation, which is not following good arcs, which is just a high frame count, which is consistent and solid, looks stiff and, you know, very lifeless and very bland and very boring, right? Whereas animation that follows, has great timing, inventive arcs, is very lively, full of life, appealing, and that's the difference. So the obsession from people who want to learn animation, that simply think, I want to keep my drawing solid, I don't know how, it just doesn't keep form. They're only focused on that, but they don't realize the bigger picture is, yeah, animation looks shit, mate, because you haven't actually learned how to speak the language of animation. You haven't learned the 12 laws of animation. You haven't learned anything about how to time your animation or how to arc your animation. All you're concerned about is keeping your one drawing solid, which is why you've rushed to embrace the software, the cutout, the rigging, the AI. Good luck to you. Enjoy your fake practice. We authentic animators, we're going to carry on learning, improving, getting better at the process so that we can express ourselves in a much more artistic, lifelike, appealing, or even abstract manner. Right, so that's the first. So the body's on thirds and the legs are on favors. Now one more favor, right? So we're going to have a favor of the knee here, favoring the other side. It's important to see the anatomy of the knee in action. So I'm gonna throw in a little bit of anatomy in there. Otherwise, you can't. You can get completely lost in the shape itself, and then your drawing will kind of not really work. Okay, so that's favoring the other side. But my hips are on a third. My hips are on a third because or on a half, because I forgot to mention, when you're dealing with the third chart and you've already drawn 1/3, this half simply becomes a half chart, right? So that's just, the other third is easy. It's just halfway between this one and this one, right? So that's what I'm doing now with the rest of the body. I'm putting the body halfway between, even though the timing is on thirds. That could be a reason why you, Migs, are still stuck in halfland. You might be doing things on thirds, but then when you're doing the second third, you're thinking it's a half, and kind of confusing you a little bit. Dun, dun, dun. I mainly started by drawing key poses in sequence and then drawing the arcs between. My timing was off a little bit, leading me to go back and fix stuff at times. Me, when I miss stuff on frames and stuff pops in and out after 400 frames. That's okay. It's all learning. It's all learning. No matter how good you get, no matter how, like for me, everything I do is learning. This particular animation is me teaching myself to learn to let go, right? I want to create content, and honestly, I've got to the level now when I watch some of my favorite Disney films and I see things that are so wrong and off in them, and I say to myself, well, if there are things that are wrong and off in that, it's okay that I can just rush a piece and not care about it. Because ultimately I want to produce more content. I'm now looking to produce content. So with this, I'm trying to knock out a full dance sequence as quickly as possible. Right, so here now we can see the legs. Can we see how those legs are doing they're actually got some timing to the legs, and the body of the top half of the body is moving not very kind of naturalistic, and the bottom part of the body is having this cool leg flip like that. So you could see how, again, this is just broken down. As I said, there's probably going to need an in-between between hair and hair, right? Possibly on a half on ones, right? But you can see how that's working. So that is that. Now, if I go between hair and hair, it's kind of like we're kind of doing the same action. So I'm going to use the same favor principle. I'm going to use the same favor principle with the body on thirds for this, because I want to hold that last pose. So again, we're gonna wanna have this one almost just where it needs to be, traced there. But this one, the knee, we need to think a little bit of the knee anatomy and the leg anatomy as we're coming out of that. Here the body's going to be on thirds. Well, let me see what those hands are doing. I might do something a little bit different. I might put a little bit of a wrist. Here I'm going to put a little bit of a wrist joint action to kind of indicate that it's the end of the little dance move. So maybe put the arm on a third, but just do something cool with the wrists, just to kind of give it a little bit of a flick. You see, that's just coming to me through intuition, which is again what the inauthentic animator will not do. You know, while I'm looking at the while you type in your prompt in the machine and say, please do everything for me because I'm an ignorant dick and I don't know how to animate and I want you to do it and make it look like Disney, Pixar anime and everything else that I jerk off to in my sleep over, and then press return and then hope for the best, you'll just settle for what you've got. Or you might think you're a director and go, oh no, I know a bit about animation. But here, because we're looking at one pose and looking at the other pose, I'm saying, wouldn't it be nice? You know what? I didn't intend that, but it'll be nice to put an extra bit of follow through and overlap because we're coming into a different move here. So it creates a bit of a finality on the movement. Little touches like that. Maybe the casual viewer will not care and it really will not matter. But then again, that's why we're in this niche, you know. I don't see people that love fine food debating the taste of McDonald's. I don't see people that enjoy the theater debating the acting in a soap opera. You know, it's completely different mentality, completely different. So we as authentic animators do not need to explain ourselves or lower our standards to the kind of base mentality of people that are who have been fiddling around with software and are now enticed by AI. All we need to do is our job to the best of our abilities, which is animate and draw to the best of our abilities. That's what's important. So now we're going to put this as a kind of favor into this pose. And we're going to favor into this pose. Just to keep that timing going in the legs before we come out of it. The body's going to be on thirds. Going to have like that. You know, I was watching clips of the movie Gandhi, an Oscar-winning film by Sir Richard Attenborough starring Ben Kingsley. And how he got the British Empire to leave was simply by just not resisting it. The law of non-resistance. And that's how I pretty much am able to enjoy, have enjoyed my animation career throughout my life. Because when I wanted to be a hand-drawn animator, my parents resisted what I wanted to do. My mom and dad said, people from our background, we don't do that. You know, you're to do science, you're to do mathematics. I sucked at both of them. Tough. I like to draw. I wanted to animate. My dad tore my drawings up. I would draw 50-page comic books, and my dad tore them up and threw them in the bin. Very painful at the time as a child, but I still persisted. That's what I want to do. Reluctantly, he paid for me to go to art school. Never really respected it. My school teachers, back in the day when it wasn't so politically correct, my school teachers said to me, people of your background opened corner shops, because they could see that I was very poor at science and very poor at maths. And they said, well, you'll want to do art, but you need to be a little bit, have something to fall back on, because art is very hard, and people from your background, they tend to open corner shops. So basically, I kind of laughed at that, because my brother was 3 years older than me, and it was the 1990s, and James Baxter, is a British guy, and he would come back from the States to a studio called Passion Pictures. And my brother would go there as a teenager. I was maybe about early 20s then he was. And he would go and talk to James Baxter for advice. And James Baxter would say, do live drawing and this and that. But we never really hung out with him. But as little kids, it was like meeting your hero, like if you like have a pop star. We never had pop star. Me and my brother always wanted to be animators, so we literally, that gave me some encouragement. And oh wow, James Baxter is in London, and my brother got to see him, and he showed him one of my drawings and asked for some tips, and James Baxter drew over it. I wonder if I still have that drawing in England. I'm not in England at the moment. It'd be cool if I can dig it out. And my brother is working with Melendez Films as a producer right now. Melendez, they do the Snoopy thing, so kind of heavily involved with that company, but not as an animator. So basically, I had resistance from my teachers. I had resistance even when I went into uni. They were a very kind of artsy fartsy uni, and they were like basically telling us, you know, if you draw this kind of animation, you're a commercial sellout. That's not art, you know. And the students that were just literally shooting their handprint on a rostrum camera and putting breakfast cereal and doing all this pixelation stuff, they were getting high grades, and I was getting poor grades because I was trying to do a run cycle in perspective, and they said there's no meaning to it. You're just trying to just practice a commercial craft. So even at when on my animation degree, I was not given much support. I was told that I was a commercial sellout and nothing was going to come of it. And then when I finally graduated, I got into the animation industry, and one of my first projects was 8 Crazy Nights, and I met my mentor. And but then again, the world had changed. CG had come, and hand-drawn animators were dropping like flies. Some of them sadly even committed suicide. So it was just when I had thought I've made it, I'm working on this film, all of this resistance is going on. All of this is, but I said, no, you know what? I still want to do hand-drawn animation. Then if CG wasn't bad enough, the 2D puppets came. The 2D puppet rigs came. And everybody wanted to do everything using Flash and 2D puppet rigs and all that kind of stuff. So the demand for what I was doing was getting less and less. And for a brief moment, I got a job as a CG animator. And I was animating in CG, and I hated it. And that was the one time in my life what nearly broke me. Because I was also a martial arts instructor, and I was contemplating I might want to do the cage fighting instead of being an animator. But then I thought, but I hate cage fighting as well, because I like traditional martial arts. I'm not into all this dogfighting with men. It's not my thing. I like the spirituality of the martial arts as well. I prefer animation and film, and I prefer like doing flashy martial arts moves that are probably less effective, but they look cool. So I wasn't even interested in that, and I was feeling really broken. But I got a job for Universal Pictures to be a storyboard artist on paper, drawing on paper, for the Tales of Despero. And then I went on from being storyboard, doing more and more storyboards for 20th Century Fox, for Nickelodeon, Disney TV, Children's ITV, BBC in Britain. And funnily enough, I got told to be an animation director for Lego. And it was on a CG project, but I didn't do a single bit of CG. I did hand-drawn thumbnails and wrote notes. And then all in the while, in the background, I was building a YouTube channel because I was getting sick and tired of the industry anyway. I was not drawing as nice because the quality of the projects had moved from being aesthetically pleasing, strong draftsmanship Disney projects into this kind of ugly Cartoon Network, any 5-year-old can draw crap. So I was not happy in the industry, and I said, well, there are people out there that are interested in listening to me, and they're willing to learn from me. And if I start my own little online training library, maybe that's a way I can sustain myself. And here I am to this very day, practicing the art of hand-drawn animation. And why did I just tell you that little story? Because I was talking about how I saw some clips of Gandhi on YouTube. And it made me think about my life. And even though I didn't really relate it to what, I didn't say I'm going to be like Gandhi and not resist the British Empire. We're going to beat the British Empire by non-resistance. But I didn't resist all the change. I said, okay, well, CG's here. I'm still going to do what I want to do. 2D Flash and Puppet and Rig is here. I'm still going to do what I want to do. And now AI is here. And guess what? I'm still going to do what I want to do. I'm not going to resist it. So my message to you guys is just remain authentic, embrace the real you, the human you, and do not surrender to the fear of utilizing a tool that on the surface seems to be associated with what you do. But when you actually get into it, it removes everything about you because it removes the process. Of course, some of you watching this video aren't interested in the process, and you've already. Why are you still watching? Because most of those people think I talk too much anyway. They're like, I can't listen to this. This guy's yap, yap, yap. I got a comment like that the other day. I said, see ya, faker. Bye-bye, faker. You haven't got the patience to listen to me, an experienced animator sharing you the real things, not the dopamine fixing things, and also the mindset. Then clearly you're not interested in really developing your ability. You're just looking like a jerk off. You're just looking for that quick fix, you know. You're not an authentic animator. You don't have the patience, and or you're going to find out in a very painful way. So there are people that are going to enjoy AI and they're going to dismiss what I'm saying, but I'm not really talking to them. I'm talking to the elite few who are real artists that are absolutely in love with the process. And that's you through and through. That's what you do. And it's important to remember why you're doing it and how you're doing it. Okay? The why is you're doing it because you love it. And the how you're doing it is the drawing of the frame by frame. Why? Because you love it. Eliminate that, and what have you got left? A shell, a finished result that has no purpose and meaning to you. That's simply what it's all about, really. The why and the how. Because you can just change everything about yourself and you'll still be yourself, but the concept of the self is completely changed. You're just the shell. You just look the same but with a different interior. Anyway, let's return to this. I just thought I'd go off on one because that's what I like to do. My streams are not only about sharing the real secrets of hand-drawn animation, but also helping you navigate your way mentally through these tests that are put before you. So here we have got another timing of those legs. So that's how we can really see that cool thriller dance. Because one of the things I'm doing is I'm not making this sequence just like, oh, let's look at the dance. Because that's what AI would do. And it would be a really boring, bland copy of the Michael Jackson dance. I'm saying, okay, well, with this dance, he does a move and he does it twice. So he does this leg move once. And then he does it again. So what I'm going to do is show you the Michael Jackson leg move that you all want. But I'm going to inject some fun and personality and character and in the other aspects with her face and, you know, a bit of camera moves and hair like this. So hair is all the expressing the sexuality of the character with the hip thrust like this. So it's immediately giving it the human touch, which a bland, boring copy of the dance simply wouldn't have. So having interesting edit points, fun expressions. Where are we? Where's one of my favorite ones is so then again here. So here you see the clapping of the hands and then the low camera angle, but you don't really see the move, right? You see her stick her tongue out and go, but then you think, oh, well, you missed it. No, you didn't. Here it is, the same thing. She does the move, like, there's that move, right? But my favorite one is probably this one here, where she looks so ridiculous. This one here. So the camera pans up her walking and you just see, not this one, the next one, this one here. Just really crazy eye rolls and expressions that are not necessarily in the dance. And it makes the whole thing a lot more fun and a lot more interesting than, oh, look, everybody, I looked at the Michael Jackson Thriller dance and just hand animated it and copied it. No, I've tried to get my head inside this character, Gracie Goodbear, and say, how would she do the Michael Jackson dance? She's kind of like a really kind of expressive, fun. In New Zealand, my wife's New Zealand, they have this term cray-cray, which means crazy. So she's a bit of a cray-cray, right? She's clever, but an intelligent, artistic girl. But she can switch and be a bit like Goofy sometimes. So I want to kind of show that in this character. Now I'm not gonna put an in between here, because this will just be one in between hair and hair, and it's a boring in between. It's not a breakdown. So I'm gonna move. Neither one am I gonna do one hair. It's more coming to the, actually, I am going to put one here, just so you can feel the timing. So Migs, this one is for you. Immediately I know what I'm going to put here. I'm going to put a half. And by the way, Migs, I'm not having fun at your expense, all right? I value you on my streams. You're always giving me love and support. I truly appreciate that. I'm having a bit of sport with you, but also I'm reminding you of this incident. So in the future, you're going to think things other than halves, right? You're going to think, okay, I've got, not only do I have thirds, I've got favors as well. Right? And all of you anime lovers out there, favors are what gives anime that special punch, because they've got such a limited frame rate that they gotta kind of make their stuff feel more expensive than what it is. And part of that is not only the amazing art direction and production design, it's for the movement of those action scenes that you all love. It's using a lot of favors, and thirds, because they don't have the luxury of doing too much slowing in and slowing out, and they've got their own look, they've got their own timing for it. That's this staccato kind of timing that's got a nice feel to it. It's purely done by favors. So here that's coming up on a half. Now we bring between here and here. I want to slow into this pose. I want to really slow into this pose. So I'm going to use another favor for the leg. So the leg timing is coming. Yeah, so actually what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do the leg on a third, because the third is going to give me a lot of time to slow into this position. So no favor for the leg here. 2/3 of the way away. 2/3 or 1/3 away from this one. Going to give me some time to do some nice slow in on that up point. This part is going to be, yeah, we'll make it 2/3. We'll make that 2/3. So the body is going to be on the 2/3 rise. The body is going to be 2/3 of the way away. The head is going to be 2/3 of the way away. Now, what I need to think about is the arm. We've got something interesting going on with the arm here. So what I want to do with this arm is I'm going to put this arm 1/3 of the way like this. See, this might require some playing. Yeah, why that's not going to work is because I'm doing too much stuff with the elbow. So that would have been nice, but not what we want. We want to keep it linear. Not really. So this is going to be 1/3 of the way here. But you see how I explored that. Now look at how I'm keeping the wrist angle, so I'm staying true to this hand shape, right? Keeping the wrist angle here, so we're staying true to that hand shape. I'm going to keep that there like this. I'm going to look at the timing of the other hand. This here is a bad hand position. Probably it'll come down a bit before it comes up. Now this hand I'm going to put on a half, so a little bit different speed here. So this is 1/3 of the way away from here, and this is halfway between there. So that's going to give a little bit of weight to that movement there. And we'll need another, we'll need at least 2 or 3 in betweens here. So 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. All right. So this will be like 9. So just around 8 frames. 8 frames is just over 1/4 of a second, which is 6 frames. And we see that. So that's how I know that. So you see what I'm doing? I'm putting it right back to the beginning where we talk about the language of animation. Remember the Real Animator Ritual? I'm a real animator because I speak the language of animation. It's very important that you get fluent. If you want fluid animation, you got to get fluent in the language of animation. So I immediately know, instantly know what's going to work, what's not going to work when I'm coming up into this. And also the timing of the slow in. There's going to be 8 frames before she stamps down in a fairly quick way here. So there's a lot of in-betweens between here and here. Well, not a lot, about 3 or 2. 1, 3, 5, 7. Yeah, so there'll be 2 more in betweens. 9, right? And there'll be in between hair and hair. Right? How are we doing for time on this stream? Let me just have a look. We've been going for 1.5 hours, pretty good. So I might just rough in that in between for you. I might just rough in those in between so you can see what the timing looks like. Now here we're gonna come down of this, and I'm gonna come down with the leg. I'm gonna come down fast on a half. Here we're just gonna plonk it down very fast because she's stamping down. Everything here is gonna be pretty much in the same place. And what's gonna happen with the hands, I'm gonna watch the arc of the hands, is I'm gonna have it make a maneuver like this. Because we're slowing into this pose, all right, we can come out with a big jump like that. It's okay. Sometimes when you think about your timing, you think, I'm going to need another frame out of hair. Maybe you can put it on ones if you don't like the poppy look, but I want that poppy look because I want there to be this kind of like harsh. This hand was first, but we'll maybe have it come here. So I want the arc to be like this, right? Almost like a love heart, right? Let's see the circular arc going on here. The head is pretty much going to be where it is, and we'll put in just another one there. So as she stamps down, I'm going to do something cool. I'm going to have her get just a little bit taller now. Again, this wasn't in the script, but this is something that I know will make the animation better. So she's going to get a little bit taller when this foot comes down. And that's what you learn with the heavy bouncing ball, the sudden staccato. And now this one's going to be on a third. And this one's going to be on a third. Now this is called twinning, right? And people say, oh, twinning's bad. Well, when you're dancing, you want things to be kind of like the same. Right? So, not in this instance. The twinning is going to give it a feel of unity and finality. Okay? So then here we're going to have her kind of, these rough drawings of the head aren't really going to read, but when it's drawn in nicely, she's going to come back down to the spot. And we're going to have, you may want to go the hands beyond, but I'm going to cut. So I don't want to have the hands go beyond and settle back, right? We're just going to have it almost like a third of the way away, not a half. Maybe we could have it as a half. When I tidy it up, I'll probably put it on a half to keep it more, keep the timing a little bit safer. These legs are going to be as is. And what will happen is the socks will slowly settle to give the garments that feel of follow through on there like that. So the hand movements is going to be like this. So we can see that's how that's going to work. Right? So she's here, she goes there. Now I've got a few frames to put in there to sell, but you can see how the fluidity is happening and not that many in-betweens have been drawn, right? And it's got timing and appeal to it. How does that look on there? Yeah, you can see the The dance has got like appeal in the legs, which is what we want, right? So we've got one more to do here. So notice how I haven't drawn the chart, right? Most of the time when I do my own work, I don't draw a chart because I don't have an assistant, and I know exactly why, because I speak the language of animation. Lauren Presley, got to go, really valued the stream, will hope to be here for others. Thank you, Lauren Presley. Dragon Dreams, good to see you. Gracie is really great and pretty. I like the curly and bouncy big hair type of characters, but I just can't figure out big hair or hair in general. I grew up in the 80s. I absolutely love big hair. So that's why Gracie has big hair. So me and you are one on that. The big hair is gonna, unless it's like, she's got thick, curly, not curly wavy, more like my wife's thick wavy hair. So it's gonna be springy and move more like a unit. Whereas straight, thin, silky hair is gonna be kind of like a lot more, it's going to break up a lot more, and it's going to kind of move a lot faster at times and go everywhere. I remember watching, people talking about anime stuff. Unfortunately, I cannot read Arabic fax comments. They're in a language which, okay. My dear brother, how do you explain Red Bull's advertisements complied simplified graphics and nature excessively when drinking the beverage? It's just the style. I'm not a huge fan of Red Bull. Animation, it's fairly simple, but it's done so to have that book illustration. There's an artist called Quentin Blake. It's not absolutely like his work. He did for the Roald Dahl books. They want to keep it very simple, but what makes it good is what we call staging. It's planned very well, and it's using pose to pose. It's using pose to pose animation, and the style is very simple. But what they're doing is they're going from one pose to the other pose in an appealing manner that is faithful to the illustrative style. So, while I personally might not like it, I acknowledge that there is good work there because they're being faithful to that style, and the way they've chosen to move that animation works for the aesthetic style that they have. It looks like a kind of jerky, jumpy book illustration kind of thing with the boiling, constantly boiling, wobbly lines moving back and forth. And what they do is it's an old special effects thing. It's the wave principle. I'll talk to you about that actually. So if I come here, right, let me just give you something. So we have a line here, right? Then we have a line like this. Then we have a line like this, right? And we're having a wave principle, right? So what we're going to do is, let me just create a little cycle out of that for you. We're just going to add a frame here. This is literally the secret of special effects animation, but it works for simplistic movements. This is the one thing that symbol animation, rigged animation kind of understand. Right, now we're going to come out of that. And we're gonna put in one more, just there. And then that'll go back to that. So we've got a little bit of a cycle here. So let's take that. Copy panels. Edit. Base panels. Edit. Base panels. All right, so this is what we have at the moment. Right? We've just got something like this. Right? Now what we're going to do, as we go into this one, right, I'm gonna get the 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna get the first 3 panels. I'm gonna get the first 3 of the next cycle. Copy panels. Edit. Base panels. Right. So we're gonna start that again. Right. But then what I'm gonna do is for the next one, I'm going to come up really big like this. Right? And I'm going to show you a little trick here, right? Between here and here, I'm going to use a favor. Right? And another favor. See, yeah. So we suddenly have an anticipation, right? Like this. Then from here we're going to go like that. Right? Into that. And we're going to get there with coming out of it on thirds. So we're going to have like that. We're going to have that. So we're using all the thirds and things that I've been talking about. And then from here, let's see, between here and here, I'm going to slow in, I'm going to favor to that. And then from there on in, we can just leave it or cut to the next shot. And what you're going to see is you're going to see what an anticipation of the line does. So you suddenly get a big, interesting movement. So we're following a rhythm, then an anticipation of something big and a bigger movement, right? So you're following a rhythm, an anticipation, and then a movement into a bigger movement. And that's literally how you get from one pose to the next pose with a sudden, you kind of got a little rhythm going, and then a big thing happening. Now I want you to look at this animation that I've just done here. Little rhythm going, and then a nice little thing with the arms going like that. So it doesn't matter what style of animation you're doing or how complex or how simple you want to do something, the same principles apply, my friend. I hope that makes it clear. This is the same, exactly the same thing. Got a little bit of a rhythm going, an anticipation here, and then one movement into another. So that essentially is how, whether it's Red Bull, whether it's anime, whether it's Disney, whether it's Marvel, whatever it is, these are the fundamental laws, as I'm talking about. The Real Animator Ritual I said earlier, I I'm a real animator because I speak the language of animation fluently, right? Simple affirmation that you can tell yourself so that you ultimately understand that no matter what it is you're trying to do, you are following those laws of animation and you are expressing them, and your ability, you are limited only by your ability to express them and how much you understand them. The more you understand them, the better you can express them, i.e. either to the max or just at their very extremities or essential, what is appropriate in according to the style that you are doing, as in the Red Bull. I like the animated zombie gorillas that did a very thriller dance in the Clint Eastwood music video. Vaguely remember. I love the A&B speeches. Him talking about Gandhi Flash reminds me of the Newsgrounds short Mr. T versus violent. Okay. Big bear hair right there. Yeah, that's how I began. Wave principle is good for animating hair, not just hair, for understanding everything. And it's what you do with that pendulum swing. Because the pendulum thread is simply that in the training library, Culture Shown Art. I do get annoyed with the overuse of stutter frame loops to pad out length dragon. Yeah. That is the anime thing, to just pad out the time. We bend the laws of animation, we don't break them, or we suffer the... Yeah, absolutely, 100%. 100%. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on a half, because a half is what we need here, MIGs, because we want the movement to be quick now. And it's already got the tail end of it worked out with favors, right? So maybe with this leg, the body and everything else on a half, but I don't know. This leg I'm going to keep on 1/3 of the way. I want that leg to feel a little bit like dangling out, keeping the speed before this. Yeah, so the leg hair is on the 1/3, not on a half. This is going to be here like this. All right. There we go. So that's one. So now that feels better, right? Now, even though that leg works, that final leg thing works here, I'm going to put in a couple of 2 frames here to show you my intended timing. And that'll be it. That'll literally be it. So I'm doing all the rough in-betweens when I, normally don't really do that anymore, because it's kind of more work for me to do it this way. But this is the way we demo for you guys. So I'm going to half this, not thirds, it's half. We don't want a linear movement. We want to slow in. So this is going to be half. And the arm is going to be half. But this is why I want to have that very kind of 90s Disney timing on this particular movement with the arms. That over-exaggerated anticipation slow in pose. This character is a homage to the 80s and 90s animation. No longer my favorite era of, I'm very much a devotee of the 9 Old Men. I am, I have outgrown being impressed by the so-called Renaissance animators. They served their purpose in my life, and I'm very grateful. They inspired me. but I now look to their masters for guidance by studying the work of Milt Kahl, Frank Thomas, John Lounsbury, Les Clark, Ward Kimball, Ollie Johnson, Eric Larson, Wolfgang Reitherman. All these animators are the ones who inspire me and help me move forward with my personal endeavors. You, of course, will all have your own personal favorites. So here we can see the timing now. You see how the timing of the hand helps that flow? And there really aren't that many in-betweens between the drawings, but it feels that word fluid, which is the illiterate term for those who cannot speak the language of animation, for timing, arcing, slowing in, slowing out, pose to pose, and straight ahead. That is the message that I hope I have conveyed today. So we can see that we have really, within the framework of Keys and Extremes, by understanding the language of animation, we have been able to instinctively and intuitively select the right choices to execute this dance maneuver. As you saw in the previous live stream, I have the reference drawings that I made were literally stick coat hanger stick figures, very loose, so very little live action study. So we keep the live action, we keep the influence from the live action, but it doesn't look rotoscoped, it doesn't look overly referenced, it still feels very handmade and hand animated and has a lot of life and appeal in it. And that's how we get to where we want to be. Now, stick around, because I'm going to be taking questions for you, from you guys. So, oh, Majid, hey, long time no see. Bonjour, mon ami, if you are who I think you are. Maybe I got it wrong with the MAD. Can't stay for long, but I'm so happy. Yeah, I think you are, my friend. I'm so happy to have you on my live stream. Another great supporter who's always tuned into my streams. Majid, I'm gonna be returning to England for 3 months later this month. So at probably June, I'm gonna be live streaming in UK time, and you're gonna be maybe able to catch some of those streams. So just a heads up to everybody, my streaming timings may change a little as I am gonna be on the other side of the world. I have 2 locations. I am based in the UK and New Zealand. All right, so yes, please do get your questions if you have any. How long has this stream been going on for? We've been going on for 1 hour 40 minutes. Now I have a lot of work to do after the stream, and basically redrawing all of this, which I probably would have been halfway through had I not streamed, but I'm always here taking an opportunity with this to share some knowledge. If you appreciate what I do, like, share, and subscribe. And indeed, do consider donating to this particular project, which is a link is in the description below. It'll help me continue with what I'm doing. Or if you don't want to donate to the project, then you just want to say thank you and donate to me, you can do so via the link in the description. Now, get your questions ready, because I am going to talk about Real Animator training. And when I've finished, hopefully, if you've got any questions that you'd like me to answer with any specific issue of your animation journey, then go ahead and type it. Okay, so you have been watching an authentic animation live stream from AMB Animation. The Real Animator Training Library is where you can learn more about my process. So if you go into ambanimation.com and click on Real Animator Training, you will be taken to this page, which will give you an insight into the into the abilities, into what you will learn here, and also the abilities of people who have been through the Real Animator Training Library. So I like to show this video off because it gives an example of not just my work, of the work of people who have actually been students of the Real Animator Training Library. We have got Travis, who has now got quite a following on social media, and after 3 years of joining the training library, he was able to realize his hopes, dreams, ambitions, and desires by creating this very fantastic looking short film. I can't remember how long it is, perhaps it was a minute or two, but you're certainly giving the CalArts boys a run for their money. Purely self-trained through viewing Real Animator Training Library videos. We also have Aaron AOX, who did a short film for the Dalai Lama. You know, there's a documentary, so he gone on to do nice things. We have got Life Fantasy, who now does her own feature quality Lion King animations that are blowing up on social media right now. So we've got Life Fantasy, who is a Real Animator Training Library member. I'm particularly proud of this study she made from a Balto line test. I'm going to keep clicking ahead just to show you the level of ability of those who pursue and persist with the training methods that I give to these people. Oh, here we are. We have found it. So that's something that she made a study of somebody else's work using. She would not have been able to have made that study so successfully had she not learned the things that I've been trying to tell you, the timing, the spacing. Simply copying these studies is not going to teach you anything. You have to understand the language of animation in order to understand what makes it work. We've got Amberly, who's been to Bluth University. She's been to degrees in France. So she's also somebody who regularly frequents these streams and does training library work. So we've got a whole host of people who are have really expressed, you know, that I'm very proud of sharing the abilities that they have acquired, and I've actually hired some of them to help me with my work. So that's the, you know, you can literally be expressing your most authentic animation with the stuff that's stored here, because it doesn't teach you what other people are just simply appealing to your dopamine fixes. We literally take you step by step through training archives, through the essential exercises that you'll need to be. In the basics archive, you will be literally learning about bouncing balls. We talked about bouncing balls and swinging pendulums. You got a 1.5 hour lesson on a bouncing ball. You got a 1 hour 40 minutes lesson on a jumping ball, the difference between a bounce and a jump. There is one. You've got balls with weight and texture. You then move on to the pendulum, which is what I told you about. In this lecture here was all about the pendulum, and then I told my friend who typed it in another language about the wave principle. So you learn the wave principle in the pendulum swing and how it reacts with the ball, right? So you learn those very important principles with going from a pendulum, basic pendulum swing, to a pendulum settle, to a stop, to a pendulum drop and dangle, to a complete pendulum spin. After that, you move on to a basic walk cycle where you simply understand the legs. Then you do the body. This is like 1 hour 20 minutes for the legs, 1 hour 52 minutes for the body, 50 minutes for the head, 47 minutes for the arms. And you learn that with a basic walk. You learn it with a standard walk, you know, over almost hour-long videos per section So this isn't just, I'm just not some high-grade animator drawing a appealing Disney character going, hey guys, watch me animate this walk and you can follow along and learn with me. That's not what real animator training is. Real animator training is not just, you're not going to be watching any pretty pictures and copying pretty pictures and deluding yourself that you've somehow understood how to make pretty pictures move. We're getting to the reality of the situation. We're getting to the crux of what matters, what will really help you move forward with what you're doing. So then you move on to a jogging cycle. Again, almost an hour for the legs, almost an hour for the body, almost an hour for the head and arms, and 1 hour for the timing, right? So then you move on to a run cycle again. And you know why you're doing it? All these various things like this? Because I don't want to appeal to your dopamine fix when I'm giving you real animator training. You know what I'm doing but with these lectures? I'm programming your nervous system with the laws of animation. That's exactly what I'm doing. I'm literally programming your nervous system through habitual repetition of these fundamental laws of animation that you need to know if you are going to get further with your abilities. So that is essentially what matters. So I'm not going to go through the other archives. I think I have kind of made my point. The Real Animator Training Library is here, and it is for those of you that wish to express authentic animation, learn the language of animation, who are in love with the process of animation, and you want to basically watch in wonder as the work unfolding before you is at the command of your own hand. Because a lot of people don't feel good about their work. But understanding these things will certainly make a change to that. So you want to change your life, you want to start feeling knowledgeable and powerful and not feeling like a faker who's afraid of AI and soon going to cave and use AI or give up animation altogether because you don't like AI. And you want to carry on doing this and feeling good about this without just deluding yourselves, copying pretty pictures moving around and feeling that you know exactly how to do that. The Real Animator Training Library is the place for you. It's the place that's going to really make things happen. So go check it out. All right, now I'm going to go and see if there's any questions in the chat. I did see a couple of comments. Those mesmerizing legs, indeed. I was a big fan of most of the shows animated by Sunbow Sunrise. Jason the Wheeled Warriors is one of my favorites, an absolute influence on my Alpha Man project. Absolutely love that. Have you seen the Polar Bear Prince trailer? I watched it and thought, did AMB work on this? I'm interested. No, I haven't seen it. I'm interested to know what it is now. To be honest, there's so much stuff out there that's so bad and so fake and so AI that I am so into what I'm doing right now, so into creating my own projects and also spending what time I have outside of that with you guys to help you guys understand animation better and push the medium forward, that I've kind of like, it's like most of the stuff the industry is doing isn't really worthy of my time. There was a time when I was part of that machine, and there was a time when I worshipped that machine, and there was a time when I looked to that machine for inspiration. And after being part of that machine for 20 years of my life, seeing how it worked, leaving it in disgust, there's not much out there, what I've seen, that inspires me. When I want inspiration, I will slow down a John Lounsbury. I will slow down a Milt Kahl, a Frank Thomas. I might look at Katsuhiro Otomo's Steam Boy. I might look at some stuff, some really authentic stuff, either for the production design some great photography. Go to the, I'm going to go to London. I'm going to go to the National Gallery. I used to go hang out there all the time, the British Museum. I'm going to go and look at some real authentic stuff for inspiration, because the stuff being produced now is for the most part absolute fake, inauthentic, garbage. Many people talked about Klaus to me. Klaus, I have respect for the animator Sergio Pablos, one of the best in the world, but I'm sorry, to me the film just was pandering to the inauthentic and false. The whole look, the whole aesthetic was, I want to be 3D, I want to be hand-drawn animation, but I need to look like 2D. I need 2D to look like 3D so that people buy into it and accept me. That's kind of inauthentic. That kind of reminds me of when I was in school and I used to talk to all the other kids like that, so that I didn't sound like an Indian, so they all get on with me. When I was growing up, I talked like that because all the other kids talk like that. Kind of like the way I used to be when I was an insecure little boy wanting to fit in. That's what I feel when I see any hand-drawn projects in the animation world today. That's certainly not what I'm about. I'm about empowering the authenticity and the real animator within us all. That's what AMB animation is about. But I shall certainly look into this Polar Bear Prince. I'm not like somebody who says nothing good can come of anything new. Certainly not. The stuff I'm producing is new, and I believe it's going to be the best out there. So why not somebody else? So I'll certainly look into that. Could you suggest perspective animation exercises? Culture Sean Art, you're in a dangerous place at the moment. Because I know that you're the guy doing the basics training exercises. You're now getting itchy feet. You're wanting to jump ahead and do something without understanding the basics first. Perspective animation, as I mentioned to you earlier, is simply perspective drawing. This is not perspective drawing, all right? But I'm moving a character within a certain angle, okay? If I want to do perspective animation exercise, right? And I don't suggest you do this. I'm going to show you that this idea that you have the perspective, I want to do it in perspective, is your, perhaps, I don't know you that well, but I do know that you're sincere. You wouldn't have bought into my training library and you wouldn't be doing such great work on those exercises, which is fantastic. But what happens is, when people start real animator training, and then they start to feel a little bit like, I know now, I know about halves, I know about thirds, I know how a walk cycle works. Yeah, I got it. Now I'm ready to jump in and do all my anime fight scenes in perspective, man. I want to now go and draw my I'm not saying that's you, but this is a trap. It's like the guy who feels good at training, who thinks he's in for a shot with the champ. And his trainer says, you ain't going anywhere near the champ. And he thinks he can take the champ, and the champ knocks him out in the first round because, quite frankly, there's so much more to be learned. And this whole illusion of perspective, as if it's something special, is the same illusion of people thinking form and volume is something really difficult. Hopefully, when you work your way through to the end of that advanced archive, you'll see that form and volume is very easy. You're already doing it pretty well with the Stickman. And as long as you understand how to draw in perspective, so did I read the word fisheye? I want to animate in a fisheye perspective. Well, fisheye perspective is kind of like a super, like beyond the level of, so we've got our planes super wide angle. So at the point where it becomes unnatural, all right? So you probably know how to draw perspective like this, right? I'm just doing this super quick. You probably know about vanishing points. If you don't, then that's where you need to go, and you just need to learn and get used to vanishing points. So let's say that I have a cube that's hair, right? Now I'm being quite loose because I just want to be quick. My cube is not 100% accurate to the vanishing point lines, right? And now I want that cube to be here, right? So already I can take that vanishing point here and I can imagine where that cube will be on that plane, in the same plane, right? Coming up from here, probably be there. Right. So, and really I should do the back end of the cube. So this is basic perspective drawing stuff that I'm rushing through. Now say the basic thing is having the halfway point between this cube and that cube. So let me just take this here. Edit, cut. Let me just duplicate this and paste this in here. And I'm going to remove our little friend here. Right. So he's now gone from here to here, right? And now we want to move that cube here, right? So we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to move that. So we're going to follow. Obviously my vanishing points are super loose, so nothing is really, I haven't even worked out the width of this properly, right? But you can eyeball it, to be very honest with you, as long as you sell the illusion. If you want to get into architecture, at the bottom you've got a measuring line, and then you can figure out the measuring line. That's a perspective drawing thing. I don't recommend you go that far. You can eyeball the illusion, all right? But I'm just telling you because I know how to maintain the exact size as well with the measuring line, but then that goes into technical drawing, right? So again, we're going to create this thing here like this, and we're going to delete that and delete that. So ultimately, culture shown art, nothing has really changed. We're just drawing within a grid, right? We're drawing within a grid, but we're still moving shapes around within a grid. Right. We can make that a cycle. We can take this. We could put that in there. So we've got a cycle of this cube moving in and out of perspective, right? So what do we do now? All right. We basically create our midway points, right? Gonna create a X between here, right? That's my middle of the way point. It doesn't feel middle way, but that's the illusion of distance, right? Then we go back to our vanishing points, which I've been very loose with because I'm just want to very kind of quickly convey to you that this is not really anything, it's not difficult, right? It's the same things you're learning, and you can put a character in this box if you want the character to be exact to the box of the perspective, like the way those anime people draw, if that rocks your boat. I've got to be honest, I think it's completely superfluous, unnecessary exercise. If you're a strong enough draftsman, you can sell the illusion regardless. So here we want to create that middle point, which is here. I've got my I'm going to kind of change the look of the middle point. I'm going to use my eyeballing it to make it feel a little bit more, because this is 2D. We want to cheat the illusion. Okay, so now we've got something like this. I'm going to go over it so it doesn't look so messy and I mess you up. You'll see. So now, again, this one I'm going to draw a line from here to here and a line from here to here. And I'm going to create an X and find my middle point there. That's going to be my line. Right? And we're going to go to the vanishing points. Again, the vanishing points are kind of vague. They're not accurate. I'm just scribbling. But you see, I found my middle point between there, there. So I'm now going to get rid of this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get a thick black. I'm just going to go over my cube in a very, so it's not going to look like a very nice cube, but a very kind of accurate cube. But it's going to kind of, I'm sure if you use your imagination and imagine that we use really good accurate vanishing points, like here the width of the cube is a little bit out, a little too much even to kind of sell what I'm trying to say. But again, we're just doing this extremely fast. Do not let the illusion of as if perspective is somehow a complex thing to animate in. It is merely the drawing. It is merely your layout. It is your layout, and your ability to draw in perspective is limited only by your understanding of how to draw in perspective. Drawing in perspective is a relatively easy thing to do. Doesn't really require and on top of that, you don't want your perspective in this day and age to be so 100% accurate. You want to push it, because so here we've got something like this, right? We've got something moving. Now let's do a little bit of slowing in and slowing out. Let's do a little bit of slowing in and slowing out. Now we should have kept our grid, but I don't need the grid because I'm going to show you how I've kind of got my vanishing points. I'm kind of cheating it, like, because I'm being quick, but I'm kind of like, okay. Admittedly, the grid would have helped in hindsight, but we're just going to do that. Okay, so that's a half. That's a half. Now let's put in another half. Let's just be super quick with this. So that's how I find my exact half, right? I find my exact half that way. Feels a little bit off, actually. So I'm going to use my eyes to kind of, again, to sell the illusion, because this is 2D. I'm going to use my eyes. So if I think, okay, well, that doesn't feel as good as slow out, I'm going to push it. But I'm still within the grid. If I had my perspective grid, then it would work a lot better. Now between here and here, I want 1 frame. Right? So I just play along with the vanishing points, but then I find my halfway point about here. Okay. Not quite, but so the grid would help, but as you can see, I didn't really draw very accurately to my grid because I'm trying to be super fast, and perspective drawing properly requires a bit of slowness to get everything accurately to the line. It's almost like doing cleanup, and I simply don't have the time for that. So we're doing it this way to illustrate the point. So then again, we're going to slow down here a little bit. So we're going to find our halfway. And then we're going to come and find the middle of the cube like that. I'm going to come in on either side. Okay. Possibly have something like that. And you can put whatever you want inside the cube, right? So the cube is just the secret science of shape simplification. You're just basically, let me just show you so you kind of see where this is going, right? You see, you're just basically using those same laws that I'm telling you, but you're drawing in accordance to the grid. But anyway, let's keep this going. This can be a car, this can be a whatever you want. Now, I must admit the arc is very boring, but it's just a demonstration to help you understand that perspective animation is simply carrying out the laws of animation. This is why I always say to people that being able to draw, you need to be able to understand how to draw for animation. Because a lot of these comic book boys and girls, mostly the boys, because they're the one with more of the attitude, they like to think that because they can draw all their perspective comic book characters, somehow that immediately by default makes them great animators. But guess what? They don't speak the language of animation. They're ignorant in animation. If they just spoke a little bit of the language of animation, they would be able to animate a little bit better than the stiff nonsense that is often executed by them. So what I'm trying to say here, Culture Shonor, is you may have an end goal, and I want to help you get to that end goal. And that end goal may very well involve dynamic perspective animation. I don't know what it is, what you want to do. Maybe you want to do dynamic perspective fight scenes, action scenes, choreography, exciting, great, magnificent stuff. I really want to help you do that. But in order for you to move towards doing that, in terms of animation, you have to understand how to speak animation. You have to understand how to draw and how to animate. Now, there are a lot of animators, Disney type animators. I'm not going to mention any names. When I look at their drawings, it's clearly evident to me that they don't really have a very good understanding of perspective drawing. So I give you that. Perspective drawing is a high art, and it takes time, and you got to have a really good understanding of it to do it well. I'm going to show you some examples of production design I've been doing for my AlphaMan project. So we're going to go into the environments folder. We're going to go to the planet Ephyros. So I've been doing a lot of perspective drawing for this project, just for like basically quick city designs, roughing out what these buildings would look like. And I've been doing perspective drawing for that, right? So I understand how to make perspective drawings for layout, for graphic, for comic, and all that. So it is an important skill to learn as a draftsman. Many animators do not require to be that good at it, because as you see with this stuff, it's great, it looks feature, but it's not necessarily exploiting perspective drawing, right? Sometimes we have a little bit of a cheat perspective here, right, where I do that. But really, if there's no background, then you can pull it off with anything, right? So you can get away with that. Now, maybe your goal is to be able to, as I said, you want to do this stuff, high-level dynamic perspective animation. What I'm trying to say to you here is, all you need to be able to do dynamic perspective animation is to be able to draw well in perspective. Because quite frankly, what I'm showing you here with this cube, right? I'm slowing down a little bit here to get this one a little bit nicer. What I'm showing you here with this cube, yes, turn the light box off, I'm getting lost, is basically, look, Culture Sean, the stuff you're learning right now is the real stuff that's going to make you a great animator, right? If you want to exercise animation in perspective, all you really have to do is learn to draw well in perspective and learn the things that you're learning in animation. Because I'm like this, I'm rushing this, the accuracy of my cube is off because I didn't even really get it an accurate cube in the first time, right? But I'm basically doing all the things, I'm halving, right? I'm slowing in and slowing out of the cube in perspective. If I wanted to spin the cube or do whatever, I would do it the same thing. I'd work out my pose to pose using the perspective graph that I made, the perspective, the vanishing points and all of that. And it would be the drawing, making sure that my keys and everything were good. This is pretty much off. That's not halfway. You see here, I'm being such a rushing so much that I'm not even halving these lines properly, right? So it's the same thing. And as you move on to the advanced archive and you learn how to do a full 360 turnaround of a character and keep that solid, all of this stuff is an absolute, it's just really, really simple, super simple stuff. So even this, like, I can take this further, but I think I've kind of proved, let's do the trick. This is a harder one. Okay, let's just do this. So again, I'm going to turn on my light box. I'm going to go from here to here. I'm going to go from here to here. I'm going to get that line. I'm going to get that line, and I'm going to create a little X in the middle. Okay. I'm going to get my black so we see that. So this is that line. Now I can use this and this to find my halves, right? This and this to find my halves, right? Which is going to be coming here. This and this to find my halves. This and this to find my halves. That's a halfway. It's a halfway. That's a halfway. Right. It's pretty good. Let's get rid of that. There we go. Same deal, right? The cube, as said before, the cube was brushed. So the length and the volumes of the cube are constant, but it's not necessarily a very accurately perspective cube. You can even see the line rotating a little bit there, right? But had we spent time on that cube, I think you know the outcome. So let's do it again. Let's slow out of this one. I'm going to do it without even drawing the grid. I'm simply going to half here. Without even drawing the grid, we're just going to half and half and half and half and half and half. So I really need you to understand, Culture Shorn, why the Real Animator Training way is the ultimate way. Because everything I'm doing here is what you've already been doing in the Basics Archive, but drawn with a grid, right? Just drawn following a grid. Now I'm just eyeballing these halves because it's just easier for me to do that. And depending on what you want to animate, like I animated a spaceship. I can't be stuffed to draw the spaceship in perspective. I'll just trace my 3D model of it because I'm focusing on the characters and the life movement things for me. As a one-man band, all the time and energy spent on one shot, and the complexity of that spacecraft, it's about what makes you feel good. If you feel empowered doing that, that's great. For me, I'm empowered with the character stuff. But here you can see the movement in perspective following the vanishing points, right? Now, if I was so inclined, I'm not going to do it here, right? We can't really do it because I don't have my grid, but we could make this like a, yeah, I don't have my grid, so I can't really do it, but we could have made this like a kind of machine, like it was on wheels or something, but I don't have my perspective grid. So this thing could have been anything, right? Inside there you could have had a bicycle, right? And then that would have moved in, you know, contained within that shape. So the main takeaway here is all you saw me do was create pose to pose, slow in and slow out of those poses with timing and spacing, and have a very kind of rigid, boring linear arc, but there was an arc nonetheless, right? So hopefully I've demonstrated to you that the takeaway for you, Culture Shorn, is if you're really, really wanting to learn perspective, I'm not telling you to just only follow the training live. Well, if you want to get better at the fastest possible way, then yes, just only follow the training library exercises and do not deviate. As I mentioned many times with the illustration, this is you. This is the goal, the key to the kingdom. All you have to do is go this way. And it's the hardest thing in the world for most people, because they start saying, oh, that's interesting, I'll try that, I want that, I want that, this is kind of boring. Even though I really want this, the journey's kind of boring and I'm not enjoying it. And I want to enjoy. You know, having mobile phones is a gift and a curse, because delayed gratification results in lasting success. But in this fake world where we're too busy swiping away, nah, I'm bored. We watch a film, the film's talking too much, there's not action, it's boring, I'm gonna swipe and look at my phone. I'm bored. I'm bored. I want something else. I'm not enjoying this. Well, you'll get that little fix, but you won't get anywhere. You'll be nowhere near the place you want to be. So, quite frankly, if you don't go away and do the reps, you'll never get the strength. You'll never get the results. You know? I love Indian sweets. But I'm pushing 50 and I still want to be in great shape. I still want to look good in my clothes. I still want to be able to do the splits. I still want to be able to do a certain amount of pull-ups. I want to be able to do great martial arts moves, 360 jump spins and 540 degrees turning kicks. I still want to do that. And I still can do that. Well, I've kind of lost the 540, but I'll get it back. I still can do that. But it's either the satisfaction of enjoying Indian sweets every day and getting a flabby sides and not looking as good as I could to my ideal version of myself, or it's the satisfaction of enjoying that little bit of sugar and cardamom and clove or whatever, right? It's up to you. It's up to you what you want. You can either become the best version of yourself with a little bit of delayed gratification, and then as time passes, be really happy that you spent time on the necessary things, or you can be endlessly searching for the original sin. I've been searching for an original sin, one with the twist, and anything but doing what I need to get to the goal. I would do anything for this, but I won't do that. That's exactly what most people are when it comes to animation. But it's not you, Culture Sean, because I already see that you have what it takes, my friend. From the small tests that you've posted, I'm gonna open it again because you might have missed the little review that I did the other day. You've already made it this far in the basics archive. You're already maintaining form and volume, exercising, arcing, timing, slowing in, slowing out, post to post, straight ahead. You know how to maintain form better than a lot of people. That is great work right there. Yeah, you copied my exercise, but hey, my exercises are designed that you get, they're simple shapes. And moving simple shapes is harder because nobody's looking at a nice character to forgive the mistakes. We're looking at a simple shape, and all I can see is really nice arcs, really clean, solid arcs, solid volumes, pelvic rotation. Look at that pelvis. Its movement is beautiful. You have truly understood that exercise. Truly. That is a almost flawless recreation of that exercise. So hopefully through my example, all right, of showing you this, right, all you need do is, just like you're going to the gym and you've got arm day, you're going to do some, I never lift weights, so it's funny I'm using this example. I do chin-ups for biceps. That's probably why my biceps aren't so huge, but it's what I enjoy. So you've got arm day for the biceps, and then you're gonna do your skull crushers for your triceps, right? Then you've got your leg day with your squats and your deadlifts, right? And then you've got your ab day with your hanging leg raises, right? And your dragon flags, right? You got your ab day. So with your animation, you can have your perspective day. What do I mean by that? Because I just told you, don't try to go and animate in perspective. Don't deviate from what you're learning. You've seen here, this is exactly what you're learning. The only thing that you struggle with, and you're probably a bit insecure about, which is why you think perspective is such a big deal, is because you probably aren't so confident with drawing in perspective. Now, my friend Cameron Allen Davidson Black, I've told him to go and buy a perspective book and learn to draw in perspective, because I know it's going to help him become a better draftsman. When I look at his drawings, he's working so damn hard. And sometimes, for those of us who have already gone so far ahead with our drawings, we think, why do some people struggle than others a bit? And then I try this, I try that, and I think, oh, Cameron, maybe he doesn't understand basic perspective. Maybe even a little bit of basic perspective. Let's just throw that in the mix. So there are probably videos on YouTube for free by architect. Please do not look at anime people for perspective. Please do not look at people drawing characters for perspective. Please do not look at them, because you're just getting more dopamine fix. I call it jacking off. It's literally like jacking off. You're not going to get any results. You're not going to get a meaningful relationship from jacking off, and you're not going to learn how to draw perspective from watching somebody who draws an anime warrior because you're into that and you want to see them draw that in perspective. No, learn from architects or people that are doing buildings or plans, orthographic. Learn about vanishing points, learn about 3 point, 2 point, 1 point. Also learn about axonometric, isometric. Learn at least these things. It won't take you very long. It won't take you very long. Then go out with your sketch pad, do some architecture, and start doing life drawing with perspective. It won't take you very long. I promise you that. It really won't. And just like I'm going to try and write my name with my left hand, it's not very good at the moment, right? But if I do a little bit every day, it's better than it was last week. My O still needs work. Let's see, I didn't get a straight line there. Yeah, better straight line there. No, my line in this direction is no good. You see? But you know what this is? It's simply nervous system programming. That's what real animator training is. That's why my learning system is the most powerful learning system out there. I don't care what anybody says, because I have designed it as a form of neurology to reprogram your nervous system into understanding animation through and through. And drawing in perspective is not part of the equation of understanding animation laws and principles exact. But drawing in perspective is certainly an important part of understanding how to be a better draftsman. And if you want to do hand-drawn animation, the two things you really should be good at is animation, which is what the Real Animator Training Library teaches you, and drawing. And then you need to know how to put those two together so they do not fight against each other, those two disciplines. A lot of people are either one or the other, and the result is okay at times, goodish, disharmonious at others. But when you understand them both pretty well, that's when the magic happens. So that's my advice to you, Culture Sean. You are the center of your own universe. You are the master and commander. It is not for me to tell you how to live your life. But as you are on my live streams and you have invested in the Real Animator Training Library, I think you value my opinion to some degree. So I'm giving it to you with the greatest of respect and love. Okay, figure study is always a winner. Tempted to do another year where I have to draw 10 new poses every day. That's not too difficult, Jimbo. Give it a shot. I've kind of liked the way Cameron's getting really good results by doing smaller figures in his live streams. At what point do you time your anticipation poses? I time my anticipation poses in my head. I'm either going to anticipate for 6 frames or I'm going to anticipate for less, 4 to 6 frames. If it depends. It just depends what there's no one formula. If I'm going to anticipate a punch, right? If I'm a boxer, I'm waiting to use this one. This is constant anticipation. Me putting this hand forward is constant anticipation. I'm still anticipating, right? It's all action. And then the feint. So, or there's no one rule. You're just going to do this boring kind of animation. What AI can do, you need to get into the personality of the character. If I'm going to anticipate a head turn, well, am I just going to do a boring head bob like that? What every bloody fool can do who's learned the stupid little tricks in animation software? What AI can do? Or am I going to put some personality in there? Am I going to anticipate the mind first? Oh, I've got an idea. That in itself is an anticipation. That's what we call real animation, speaking the language of animation, by combining secondary action with anticipation. Secondary action can also be anticipation because it enriches the anticipation by putting personality into it. See, this is why there is no, this is the problem. This is why Real Animator Training is, again, the best system. Because a lot of these YouTube videos that you're watching out there, it's just trying to give you, do this and your work will be great. Do this and yeah, stick to the formula, stick to the formula. That's not an animator talking. That's an ignoramus who thinks he's an animator talking. Do you time it when you do the keys or breakdowns? Ideally, if you're working on a film, you would have timed the storyboard animatic so you know how long the shot is. With this, I'm kind of like going with the flow. I'm going intuitively, so I basically am limited by the dance, but I'm not sticking religiously to the dance of the timing of the dance, but it has to somewhat fit into that. So my shots have to somewhat be around that timing. So I've got an idea of the shot length beforehand, and then you basically do your keys, and then ideally your timing has to be, what are you trying to say? So you're giving a performance. You see the way I said that? Now I've paused. You're giving a performance. Pause. You see the way I said that? Now I also lingered on the word that. That's me. When I listen to the way I talk and break it down, I can see how I've gotten into this rhythm. So when you're doing character, it's your choice what area of the performance you want the audience to focus on, unless the director has told you otherwise. So that's how you time the keys and the breakdowns. You don't think of it like a formula. I'm talking super advanced stuff here. The stuff I teach in the basics archive is a formula, because you got to learn that in the first place. And I've given you that formula free in my live streams so many times, with you got 24 frames a second, half a second is 12 frames, 1/4 of a second is 6 frames, anywhere between like 8 frames to 10 frames is something, gonna feel like a good timing of slowing in, but you want to have it at least at 1/4 of a second. But this is the basic stuff that you need to drill and get used to. And then when you want to give a performance, you have to start thinking otherwise. You have to start saying, well, I'm acting here. What do I want to focus on? What do I want? What do I want the audience to focus on in this scene? And that's where you put your energy into timing it. The saying you do the timing on the keys or the breakdowns. If you're giving your work in the old way, but that way is more or less gone now. In this world where AI is king for the industry and the pipeline, we are artists. We are doing most of the stuff ourselves. We are not going to have an assistant so we don't have to draw keys and time the keys and give them that work, and it's all timed like that, where they will break it down and they will in between it. And in a way, it's better this way, because the artist has got more control over his work. You're pretty much doing it yourself, so you can time it as you go. As you see, when I don't draw charts anymore, I basically time it in my head. Because once you've got good enough at it, okay, that's going to take 1 second. Maybe I have 2 breakdowns here. I call like between those 2 keys, extremes, I'll have 1 key and 1 breakdown, and that's an interesting art. And maybe I want to spend 2 seconds on the first key and then 1 second to the last. So that way I will then spend most of my 48 frames around this section movement, and then I've got a second to play with the end. But that kind of thought process becomes a lot more intuitive as you get more experience. And the only way you get more experience, Leon Shigeta, is if you actually spend enough time doing it. Of course, the anticipation pose is made when you draw the key. Anticipation is an important part of the movement. Of course. In the training library, we have a whole exercise on anticipation. Animation without anticipation is pretty much worthless. Even if I'm going to talk like that, I'm going to bob my head down a little bit before it goes up. That little shake of my head is an anticipation of the next move. So anticipation is also anticipation of thought process. You don't just anticipate a body move. Now, some people could call that secondary action, but it still ends up being an anticipation if you're getting into performance. As I'm talking to you in this very commanding manner, I'm anticipating what I'm going to say next. I'm anticipating how you guys are going to take it. I already have enough confidence to be talking like this. So there's already a pre-anticipation to the whole delivery of it all. So because I've done it enough. So this is getting really, really deep. This is getting really, really deep into performance now. Because animation, character animation anyway, is performance acting. It's a performance. So secondary action is not just anticipation. Secondary action is doing what the 9 old men would call the business, which enriches the primary action. But often anticipation and how you anticipate is the business. And the reaction afterwards. So I'm gonna make a point, right? So maybe I'm gonna click my fingers like that. Maybe I'm coming to teach somebody a lesson. I'm cracking my knuckles. That's secondary action, but it's anticipation before I'm gonna say something. It's not the simple anticipation of, okay, I'm gonna go this way before I go that way. We've gone way beyond that now. We've gone way beyond that in what I'm talking about. So there's levels. There's levels. And this kind of stuff, what I'm talking to you now, I don't really talk much about because this is super, super high level. Most people don't even think about these things. Super, super high level. I don't do much of it in this thriller dance thing because it's just a fun, quick piece of animation where I haven't really tried to explore that. There's a little bit of it, but you know, it's a fun, silly, cute little animation that I'm doing. But again, if you really want to, finally, I think it's time to let's change scene. Ultimately, whether AI is here or whether AI wasn't here, AI to me is the same as people using software and the same as people who would say, what software, bro? Or the CG animators who never really studied the 9 old men. Or even, you know, arguably the better of the Renaissance men. Basically, AI is the trend right now, but the mentality has always been there of the independent software hick. You know, the guy who just thinks the technology he's using ultimately makes what he's doing good. But you're using a more ancient technology. You're using the real technology. You're using your own conscious power to operate your body, to create something from within you. And that's what we call authentic animation. And if you want to do that well, then it's extremely important to learn the language of animation. You know, which is why I mentioned earlier, just affirm to yourself, I call it a real animator ritual. I'm a real animator because I can speak the language of animation. Say it when you're brushing your teeth. Say it when you're doing your hair. Say it when you're eating. Just program that into your nervous system, and then sooner or later you'll find yourself because your reticular activating system in the brain will be bringing forward your own personal algorithm, will be bringing forward things into your mindset, into your awareness that are related to the 12 laws of animation, which are things that you need to be extremely well versed in. So if you are not part of the Real Animator Training Library, you can still help yourself with this simple Real Animator ritual, because then you will go out and investigate to the best of your ability on your own what these 12 laws are, and you will want to dig deeper into them. So that is still better than nothing. So it's very important to be able to speak the language of animation, because it puts you on a more sophisticated level as an animator. You're not just a schmuck who wants to tinker with technology and delude himself that he's somehow now, because the gap between the moneyed Hollywood people is gone, and he's now got the right to make his own little fantasy of whatever he thinks by typing a few words in. Look, I don't differentiate from them and the people who used to use Toon Boom Harmony and whatever other rig software are. Neither of them know about how to animate properly. So to me, there's no difference. You either speak the language of animation or you don't. You either understand animation to a sophisticated level or you don't. It's not difficult. It's pretty simple. So the first thing I would suggest is to accept that you're fully capable of learning the language of animation, just as a pianist is capable of learning how to read and write music. The only reason why some of us can't read and write music is because we're not driven enough. We're not interested enough to learn how to read and write music. We might then think we're a musician because we can go and type in, give me some Baroque classical music mixed with hip hop with a bit of 80s metal, and I want it going on to this sound effect. Go. And then I'll get it back to me and I'll go, yeah, man, I'm a musician. I'm a musician, man. That's how people have been animating, in my eyes, even before AI, with their stupid little Toon Boom harmonies and their Animate Pros or whatever those rigged little things are. They don't know jack shit. They never have. And now is an opportunity, because many of those people are feeling that they're somehow being robbed by AI. That's what I find the most hilarious thing. It's like the blind is fearing the blinder, right? Really, I mean, literally doesn't, neither understand animation, and he's saying, oh, these guys don't know anything about animation. Well, neither did you, pal. So now you got an opportunity here to actually go back to the drawing board and really learn about animation. And that's what I say to all those people who are complaining about AI is, did you know about animation in the first place? Can you name me the 12 laws of animation? How well do you know the difference between keys and breakdowns? How well do you know the difference between anticipation and secondary action? Okay. How good is your straight ahead and your pose to pose? When are you likely to interchange between the two? Okay. If you can't answer me that within, a short breath, then quite frankly, you need to learn more. It's that simple. So that's why I find these to be contrary to what a lot of people are saying. I find these to be very opportunistic times for those who want to be authentic. They're very fearful times for those who want to remain fake. Because those who are using AI already are fake. and they're happy to be fake. But there's a plenty of fakers out there who are wanting to claim authenticity, and AI is exposing the fakery, and they're afraid that the facade is crumbling away. So my saying to them is, you can either stop being afraid and feel empowered and really educate yourself, or embrace the fakeness that you always were. There's nothing wrong with it if it brings you happiness, you know? But for those of us that draw and those of us that enjoy the process, it's the authenticity of it all. And with that, I say to those of you who are about to draw, I salute you. Do your work, not just your work and no more, but that little bit more for the lavishing sake, that little bit more that's worth all the rest. And if you doubt, as you must, and if you suffer, as you must, do your work. Put your heart into it, and the skies shall clear. And then from your very doubt and suffering shall be born the supreme joy of life, the authentic joy of life, in the fakeness of the world around you. Always keep it real, my friends. Always keep it real. And I shall see you on the next live stream. Bye-bye.